Hello, everybody, and welcome back. As I promised, we are having some more action before my talk because we still have some time. Why not? And we have our friend that yesterday we met and we were having some conversations that we could do this, and he showed up. So, awesome. Thank you so much, John, for coming and sharing some time with us.
Not a problem. I enjoyed our conversation yesterday, and I enjoy all good conversations. So.
Really good. And we're going to have an awesome conversation today because this amigo, John Jenkins, sorry for forgetting the full name, alliterations. It's like a superhero stuff, right? All the superheroes have to have the same first letter, first name and last name. John Jenkins, Peter Parker, Otto Octavius. I mean, I know my comic book, sorry.
I don't know that I'd call Otto Octavius a superhero.
No, lately.
Arguable. He had free power or lots of power for really cheap.
It's a silly one because he became Spider-Man for a while. And crazy story. Yeah, I'm into that. But well, let's not dive into too much superhero stuff. But speaking of superhero stuff, we were talking a few seconds earlier about origin stories. John, where do you work, John?
Right now, I work for Disney.
Okay, and that's why I was like, this is going to be an origin Marvel super story, something like that. What's your origin story? How did you started in technology, or you said that you had the multiverse of stories?
Okay, technology, that's a big one, but technology, we can go way back. When I was a teenager, I actually found myself on our family PC 6 to 8 hours a day, every day after school, straight to the PC, and on the PC till dinner time, after dinner, all the time. I'm like, okay, if I can spend 6 to 8 hours a day on a computer just for the fun of it, just tinkering around, learning how it works.
Silly question. Was there already internet?
This was right when internet at home started becoming a thing. So I convinced my parents to get dial-up.
How many kbps modem?
28.8.
Yeah, that was the thing. Like, which one do you have?
Brilliant.
Oh, 14, 28. Oh my God.
You only have to wait for 30 seconds for the page to finish loading.
Those were the days. And it's interesting when you mentioned that because in my beginnings as well, my dad brought a computer home and there was no internet. It was just playing with it and seeing what it could do, right?
Yeah.
What things like just getting a few details were you playing with? Because 6 to 8 hours a day without internet, it's unthinkable right now. What would you do? What were you doing?
Oh, tinkering around in the internals of the operating system. What do these files do? What is screen resolution? And what happens when I change it?
How many times did you break it?
Well, the first time I changed the screen resolution, I actually went through beforehand, step by step. Here's how I change it back if this doesn't work. Because I didn't know what it would do. I didn't know what screen resolution was at the time. I didn't know the difference between 256 colors and 16,000 colors and 16 million colors.
Yeah, those were like the things that we take to, it's given. We already know that it's like, yeah, it's resolution, it's always, but on those days, we were like,
it was all brand new to me. We had a 14-inch monitor, maybe. Cathode ray tube, weighs like 20 pounds, sitting on top of the machine.
Like those big alien heads behind the monitor, like super deep, super thick, and heavy.
And you've got the VGA cable. You've got to screw in both sides, otherwise it might come loose, and suddenly there goes your video.
No, that's the super VGA, because there was just VGA that was like the single plug.
Mistake.
Yeah. And I remember because it was like, oh, I have the super one. It's like now I remember when I jumped to HDMI, like, oh my God, 4K and stuff. On those days, I remember that it was like super VGA. It's like
these were back in the days where you had to completely shut the machine down before you plugged the mouse and keyboard in.
Yeah.
Otherwise, who knows what would happen. Plug and play wasn't a thing yet.
Those were the days of keyboard not detected. Please press F1 for help. True story, that happened. And so you were already at a very young age interested in computers, interested in technology, were enjoying it big time.
I thought to myself, if I can spend 6 to 8 hours a day doing this just for fun, I may as well get paid for it. So going into anything related to computers post high school was a no-brainer for me.
Mm-hmm. So did you do any IT bachelors or?
I actually went into computer science
Mm-hmm.
because that was the major I saw that was related to computers. Basically the only major at the time offered by my college. And I went in with absolutely no programming background.
Okay.
If you'd asked me prior to that, I would not have expressed any interest in programming. And when I first started, I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing other than that it's with a computer, which is
Mhm.
good because I like computers. But I spent so long just figuring out what a main method was and how to make it work.
What when you were getting in college into development and programming, what language did you started with?
It started with Java initially. Um, Java the first semester, I think C++ the second semester, and then started. I had a class in Python after that at one point.
Oh,
Then there was one class I took that was on programming languages generally, where they're like, pick a programming language you don't know yet and learn it.
oh, cool.
And so I played around with Ada that semester.
Ada. I'm not familiar with that one.
Not many
Interesting.
people are.
Yeah, picking the interesting hidden. You were so hipster. It's not mainstream. I'm choosing whatever is not. It's interesting. It's and from there, like I'm feeling you came out of college with all the preparation, and you. No, you never come out of college with all the preparation, especially not in IT.
Oh, definitely not.
You
I,
get the
came,
basics.
I come out of college and I'm like, okay, I got a computer science degree. I know how to program, generally speaking. My career path must be that of a software developer because that's what you do with a degree in computer science. Those are the days, young and clueless.
You don't seem that happy about it. What happened?
Well, to be fair, all the signs were there. One of my favorite courses while I was at college was the course on software engineering. And in this particular course, the instructor, Charles Knudsen was his name, but he took the class. There was 25 or 30 of us, and he said, for this entire semester, we're going to break the class up into teams of 4 or 5 people each. And it was a very open-ended course. He said, instead of giving you a fully fleshed out assignment with full requirements and everything you need to do in order to succeed and get an A on the project, we're going to work through this as if you are all software development companies. We're going to
Interesting.
give you some basic requirements up front. We'll have meetings to talk about and refine the requirements over time. And you're responsible for coming up with design documents, for writing the code, coming up with a test plan, and delivering a functional product by the end of semester as a team. And the teams, the grade you get is based on the grade your team gets. And so it was very much, let's take big software company and let's distill the experience down into something that you can do in the course of a semester. Now, I bring this up because during that course, the thing that I learned about myself and the thing that really should have clued me in much earlier was I never felt like I was very good at writing code, but I was always really good at watching other people write code and telling them why they were writing it wrong.
I
was really
have
good
some QA vibes right now, early vibes.
Really good at figuring out why the code that we'd produced didn't work the way it should.
Mm-hmm.
And that should have clued me in much earlier than it did. But so I graduate, I've got my bachelor's in computer science. I take a job doing development out in Wisconsin as a software developer. And the thing they don't prepare you for in college is you get hired by a company. They bring you on board. They give you a little bit of basic training on how to write code in the language they use, how the company works, what the software is supposed to do. And then they throw you in the deep end and say, okay, here's a feature. We want you to implement it. No requirements, no design documents, no definition of done. And oh, by the way, you're working on software that if you do it wrong might potentially kill people.
Now are the days where it's dangerous. When you were saying It's a very interesting analogy because in college I remember we had like a projects class, was like a little bit of management requirements, all the things. Me and many of my friends, the habit was like no pre-planning, nothing, code, and you didn't even know what you were doing. And I think that some organizations nowadays are like that. No pre-planning. They don't want to. It's kind of the boring part for many, the pre and the post, designing and QA. That in college is just like this principle. Understand, I don't know, a queue and the LIFO, FIFOs, and get your mindset lists, how to order them, blah. But when you are in the real world, you find out that there's much more than just coding. It's a big world around it. And I have the feeling that's what you were kind of facing on this new reality once you were out of college and these jobs, right?
To some degree, yes.
I have a feeling that took you to QA eventually. How was that transition?
Let's get a little more background first. One of the other particular challenges of this organization I found myself in was the company culture was very much, you have software developers, and then on the other side of the wall you have the QA folk. And when you finish the development, okay, you deliver it, throw it over the wall, QA looks through it, they don't give you any indication beforehand what they're looking for, and they tell you all the things that are wrong with it. And when they're done with that, they throw it back over the wall to you. There's
so much disconnect in that.
There was so much disconnect in that.
I remember in those days, no, but it's just a matter of communication. Dude, we're even in a separate building.
There was no communication at this company. And in many respects, I take my experience.
Was that waterfall? Or were you already trying Agile?
I don't know what they used, honestly.
I don't know how to call that.
My manager gave me a 3-sentence description of what it was I was supposed to do and turned me loose.
Okay. Management.
My efforts to sit down and have a meeting with people to find out what does this look like, what sort of requirements or constraints do we have around it, never produced any results. It was very much, okay, you're on your own, good luck. And many of the experiences I had at this company, and I'm not going to name them for obvious reasons, but many of the experiences I had at this company taught me what are the red flags,
what not to do,
and what are things that I should look for that I want to actively avoid moving forward in the future. And as I was nearing the end of my tenure at this company, they weren't particularly happy with my performance for obvious reasons. I wasn't particularly happy working there. And I got thinking, and I'm like, you know what? When I was back in college, I took this class. I really enjoyed breaking other people's code. One of my classmates, one of my good friends actually, took a job doing quality
QA.
assurance. Why didn't I do that? I'd heard good things from him. He was really happy with the work he was doing. I communicated with him regularly. So I reached out to him, and he got me a job at that organization he worked with. And that's really where my QA origin story in the technical field took off, where I switched from being a software developer, and I use developer very intentionally here, to being a quality assurance engineer who later became a software development engineer in test.
Because you had the development background. That's super important. I think QA, without that background, even if you kind of didn't feel very well there, but you understood it.
Oh, definitely. And I think that's really important. And a very important point that you bring up is that when I graduated with my computer science degree, I thought, okay, the only place to go with this is as a developer. And as I dove into that developer world, I started really having lots of doubts and really second-guessing myself because I don't enjoy this much. And a lot of the things that I learned at college didn't seem like they applied or were particularly relevant to what I was doing. And it's only as I have grown and matured in my career that I discovered that what I learned in college was not how to do the job that I eventually got hired to do, but it taught me the principles that allow me to do that job effectively.
The foundations
The
to learn about that job, because
Exactly.
it,
And as I interview people and look to hire new people who will be on teams that I'm working on, to people who will work with me and underneath me to contribute to the efforts I'm doing, I find myself increasingly looking for people who have that foundational understanding of things like programming languages and data structures and these tools that they'll need to understand fundamentally. Maybe they don't know the implementation or the particular language we're using, but they can learn it and pick it up within a matter of days or weeks.
that's
and
super
become-
important. Don't close yourself to those. A recommendation generally that I give, and for people when we are hiring people, and I'm involved in that process, I don't care if you don't know to use this tool or this programming language. If you have the mindset, you understand the principles. I have this analogy for many is like, it doesn't matter if it's like an old Volkswagen Beetle, standard drive and all that, or a Hummer. You know what is the principle. I can put you in one car or the other, and you'll, even a motorcycle, you pretty much like, oh, here's the gas, and that's the key, right?
Yeah, it's the stuff they taught me at school about Big O notation and how do you determine the overall complexity of software. Do I sit down and think, okay, what's the Big O notation of each piece of code I write? And of course not. But do I understand that the more loops I stack inside each other, the longer it's going to take something to run, and I should try to avoid nested loops? Definitely. And to be able to translate that theoretical fundamental knowledge into best practices in coding and to be able to find others who can do the same has been a significant benefit to me career-wise.
And I wouldn't say only coding, but QA-wise, because you just mentioned like a programming loop. In my specialty, performance, sometimes you will see something is not performing. It's taking too long. You go and dig into the database, and you see that there are 10 queries happening. Oh, someone put it inside of a loop in the code. If you didn't have that foundation, you wouldn't be able to detect that defect. And that's a very good one that you mentioned, like having that foundation for doing a better job. You're always building on top, right?
Definitely. One of the other key things I think that's helped me throughout my career is, for better or worse, I've moved between companies and I've worked at a lot of different companies.
I think that's good.
Not great with regards to long-term
Employers,
Correct.
I know, but you get a lot of experience.
The experience I've gained from it is significant. Even some of the worst companies I've worked for, I've learned valuable lessons
You walk
from.
out with experience and learning. It's key. Yeah. And that's why my recommendation I give is jump as much as you can, learn as much as you can while you're young. Then you have to already build on what you have learned. But that's a good one.
So that second position I had really got my feet wet with regards to quality and automation, and had a development manager I was working directly with there who taught me some really valuable lessons, really taught me a lot of the foundational principles I apply today. He was the first person who introduced me to Agile and Scrum principles. And he was a very strong proponent of sustainability with regards to the development life cycle. And he made sure that everyone on the team understood this and everyone on the team adhered to it as much as they needed to, that if we're working more hours in a week than we can sustain on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis, we're going to burn ourselves out and we're going to lose the people who have the valuable knowledge we need to write the code. And so don't do more work than you can do regularly. Keep yourself to reasonable working hours, whether that's 40 hours a week, 45 hours a week. Take breaks when you need them. And don't burn yourself out.
That's and especially lately, post-pandemic, with the learnings that we are getting from all the lockdown experience, post and all the madness that is going on right now, it's becoming increasingly. It has always been important,
It's always been important.
But right now it's being more evident, I believe, that people or organizations were overwhelmed, burnout. You were seeing it all over the place, the hustle culture, all those things that are not so good. I have a feeling from, because again, John did a talk yesterday where you're putting what in your pipeline? Is that the title?
Moving end-to-end tests that are traditionally run in the staging environment and putting in the pipeline.
So some of those things I feel you're overwhelming. I sense a relation. I mean, maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but before we talk into the overload and learning what is needed for the people, I want to talk about your talk, redundant, but how all these learnings, because I mean, many watching is like, ooh, Disney, me included. How was that transition? Because making it into Disney is as well interesting. I'm sure that you have an interesting journey there. How did the transition happen? What did you learn? How did you end up there?
Well, lots of good questions there. Let me touch on one other key thing that this manager taught me before we move that direction, which was never hire a human to do something you can teach a computer to do.
Yeah.
Because the computer will always do it faster and the computer will always do it the same way. And that second principle, along with the sustainable workflow, are really two of the guiding principles that have defined my career, which is
learn how to automate those things.
Let's learn how to automate the things effectively and automate them so that we don't have to worry about them anymore, and let that drive a more sustainable working process.
And release time for the people that probably are just like wasting time on that, and that they can work on something better or more interesting or more fulfilling. I don't know, because a lot of the automatable work is soul-sucking work, right? If you can do something more fulfilling and automate that, and I don't have to click the button. Did you ever watch that Simpsons episode with the little bird that was just clicking yes?
I haven't, but I've seen the meme enough times.
Okay. Yeah, famous meme. It was so impactful.
All of pop culture can be distilled into memes now.
Well, Homer was automating a process in that episode, and that's the principle. And he was freeing up time for other things that he wanted to do, like lounge on the couch. I mean, that's another topic. But as you bring it up, it's super important to identify what is automatable. Try to not. I want to keep it PG-13. BS jobs. There's a book even referring to that.
I've been through a few of those, and
we all.
Let's get back to your question, which is how did I end up at Disney?
Yeah.
So from that second position, I actually took a job with Google. And that second position allowed me to use it as a stepping stone to get through the doors at Google. And I spent the better part of 4 years at Google automating front-end web applications. Really dove into Selenium WebDriver, learning about the page object model, learning about more or less teaching myself and learning from some of the brightest minds in the industry what is effective front-end automation and what does it look like.
Sounds a little like as well, I mean, the SDAT mindset. I mean, Google was the one starting all those naming. Did you get any, we were saying that jumping organizations, I'm sure that you learned a lot around there, right?
Definitely learned a lot there. Learned what does good clean code look like, what goes into a good code review, what does good infrastructure what does good infrastructure look like? Some of the principles I live by today, such as build pipelines should execute and complete within 15 minutes.
I like that.
Directly taken from Google, where if it took longer than 15 minutes, it would get killed. Because you need a fast turnaround time. You need a short cycle between when code is committed and when you get feedback on that code.
So those, that was like some of the biggest learnings that you got at Google. Then what happened?
What happened is I moved from Google to a startup, actually.
Huh.
very interesting experience. Tried to apply a lot of what I learned at Google in more of a managerial role. Took on ownership for quality team at this startup. Built the team from the ground up. Ultimately, the startup had some problems. Ended up not lasting very long.
But the learnings of a startup are huge.
The learnings I took away from that is significant. I learned that while I can be a manager and I can be a good manager, I don't particularly enjoy managing people.
Oh, that's a great learning.
I like being an individual contributor.
Many people think that that's like the ultimate goal, but it's not that pretty.
I think the ultimate goal is to enjoy what you do and get paid well for it.
That's, yeah.
And if you don't want to do the thing that they want to promote you to, then why would you do that?
It's not always like the next level, the carrot or something. Wisdom. This is, yeah, John, it's like awesome. Please keep it funny.
From there, I learned that I can get a job pretty much wherever I want, and I need to be a little bit more choosy about the jobs I take. I took a job right away with the company. I thought, oh, this is going to be great. They hired me to do test automation, and I ignored some of the red flags. I saw a lot more red flags shortly thereafter. That job didn't last too long, but this time it was on my choosing because I saw the direction the company was going and I saw the direction I wanted to go, and I said, these two don't line up.
Okay.
So I took a job with a security startup called Cylance after that position. And
a different area of learning now.
Different area, well.
Another rabbit hole, I know.
Here's the thing, is you work in front-end test automation long enough, it doesn't matter who you're working for. The code is basically all the same.
Mm-hmm.
I was writing page objects around a website that they wanted automation for. I was then using those page objects to write test automation against that. I learned some new best practices. I learned some valuable lessons. I wrote some really cool automation for them. Met some amazing people in the industry who helped stretch my thinking and got me really refining my thinking and thinking in new ways. And it was from that position where I accepted the job with Hulu, who is in the process of being acquired by Disney. Hulu brought me on board, and a month later, they're like, okay,
now you're Disney.
We're transitioning into the Disney organization. We've got Disney perks, everything that goes along with that. And then COVID hit, and they closed all the offices. And so right at the beginning of this transition into my job with Hulu and Disney, I also had to deal with this transition into a permanent work from home culture where the offices are closed, everybody's working remotely, everything's being done by Zoom, everything's through the webcam, and that was a real adjustment.
Yeah.
But one that was really valuable for me, because when I took the job with Hulu, it was 50 miles from my way. And so I was spending 3 to 3.5 hours in a car, leaving for work at 5 a.m, getting home from work at roughly 4 p.m. after leaving the office at 1:30 or so, and then working for another hour or two after I got home.
Oh, wow.
And definitely not sustainable. Start permanent work from home, which was where I'd wanted to go when I started with Hulu. Anyway, I said, look, it's a long drive. I'm willing to come into the office for a time, but I'd like to transition to working from home most of the time, maybe come in once or twice a week. Okay, now I'm at home 5 days a week.
24/7.
24/7.
Locked up.
But one of the biggest things I love about working at Hulu and Disney is that I've had a series of really, really good managers. They've been very supportive of my skills, my abilities, and the strategies that I want to try in order to accomplish our goals.
So you're learning right now at Disney, and the lesson that would you share with the audience is more openness to try different things around QA, because I mean that's what I was like. How is it in Disney, the testing and the QA principles? Or
so here's the thing.
It has to do with your manager, sounds like, right?
Um, Big lesson here. And one of the most important lessons I've learned throughout my entire career is that a manager can make or break your time at any company.
Oh, yeah.
And if you get a good and effective manager who's willing to go to bat for you, who's willing to support you in whatever crazy thing that you're suggesting, if
The company doesn't matter.
that manager is more than worth it to stick around and work with that manager, even if you don't particularly enjoy the work you do.
Mm-hmm.
Because that manager will help you find work you do enjoy and will help you be successful at that company.
Would you say these great managers become like mentors, enablers?
With regards to the development manager I spoke about earlier, most definitely, he was a mentor to me.
Mm-hmm.
With some of the other people I've worked with, yes. At this point in my career, as I'm looking to be a mentor for others, as I'm looking to take all of the experience I've gained and share it with people generally and share it with the organization, more of an enabler, more of a...
There's another word I cannot think of, but
more of a sponsor.
Facilitator.
Yes, a facilitator. And so I came into Hulu and sit down with my manager. What's the state of things? Okay, we're working with this particular development team. They currently own and maintain 10 to 12 different microservices that all interact with each other. And the testing team for all of these products is you and me.
It's our baby.
Two of us, roughly 12 different microservices, all doing all sorts of things all together. And okay, what automation is there around any of this? Almost none.
Oh.
And okay, that's a really big scope. I don't know quite. Let me think about that.
So, quick question, and now, how are we on time? I think.
A little bit over.
Oh, okay.
Hey,
So,
I'm
yeah,
in no rush.
we
I don't know about
we
you,
get
but-
on. Yeah, it was an interesting story, and I got sucked in. So that sounds like now it aligns with your talk, trying to put a lot of that into the pipeline.
Indeed, and that's
So-
what this is where this is the origin story for the talk.
I want to hear it, but we need to keep it short. Would you mind giving us like a glimpse of what is the talk and what knowledge were you transmitting during it for the people watching that would like to see you again in another STAR conference?
Sure. So the gist of this and where this is all going is this idea that for the types of testing that we wanted to do, it's testing that really has to be done external to the software that's being tested.
Mhm.
Just like anything. And the place this is traditionally done is you deploy the software into a staging environment, you run the tests on staging. Well, what do you do when the staging environment is terrible? The staging environment's always terrible. If people always throw their stuff in staging, their stuff doesn't always work. So you can't rely on staging. Which leads us to the talk, which is let's create our own environment.
Uh-huh.
Let's start this environment in the build process. And instead of depending on everybody else's software, let's replace everything with mocks. So we have a mock database that's completely empty to start with. We've got a mock cloud storage provider that isn't a real cloud storage provider. We've got mock HTTP dependencies that we completely control. And as we run the test, let's tell the mocks, here's how you're going to respond when our software makes a request of you.
So it's you're removing the dependencies on all the external details for what you're trying to test.
The dependencies, as far as the software is concerned,
Not removing, you are kind of
we're mocking them.
covering.
all.
Yeah.
The software still thinks it's running in a real environment. It doesn't know the difference. But now, because we have complete control, when we run our test, we know exactly how it's going to come out. And if the response from the software doesn't match what we expect, we know that our software that we're testing is the root cause of that fault.
Yeah, because anyone watching, dependencies can be a big pain in the rear when we are trying to do some of this testing, and especially with pipelines. I see more or less of this talk, and trying to be on time. Amigo John, everyone come to these conferences and check these type of presentations from all the experience and multiple origin stories like John just shared. And Amigo, if people wants to follow up with you online, ramping down now the interview, where can they find you?
I am on LinkedIn. Not particularly responsive to people I don't know, but send me a message that's not about recruiting, and you're more likely to get a response. You can also find me. I'll be attending Star West in the fall.
I'll see you there then. We have another recurring guest.
I will be speaking again at Star West. Very similar topic to what I spoke about here. Less focus on the build pipeline and more focus on
the QA elements.
Using ephemeral environments to write better tests.
Ephemeral, I like the word.
It comes out to be basically the same thing. So,
but a different perspective. It's very different from where you watch it. Totally agree.
I suppose. We'll see.
No. I totally see it.
But yeah, other than that, I don't have a lot of social media presence online because I find
that's a weird environment, right?
It's more a distraction than it is a benefit to me. So
at times it's hard to unplug, but
I definitely look forward to seeing you again at Star West, though.
We're going to be seeing John at Star West. Stay tuned because we're going to have more adventures. John, thank you very much for coming and sharing your origin stories.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Everyone, now I have to run because, yes, it's time for my talk. I need to check if we're going to be streaming that or what is going to happen. Stay tuned if that happens. Otherwise, we'll see you later today. We have a walk around over the expo and some more interviews. Amigo John, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And for that, that's it for me, Señor Performo, for now. Out and adios. We'll see you around.